My guest today is Nicholas Wasierski. And Nicholas and I met on Facebook actually today. I put out sort of an SOS because I had some conversations break down this week. So Nicholas was super cool to hook up with me today and is thrilled to get to share his message. And I am thrilled to get to know him better. So, Nicholas, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so happy to have you and to learn from you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing your platform with other people and me and sharing a message of connection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, you have a business called Wandering Bear Wellness. And so you are a holistic practitioner.
Holistic health practitioner, structural integrator, and rite of passage guide.
Rite of Passage guide. I love that. That's very cool. So how did that come about? Like this is a newer journey for you?
It's been in the process for a couple years. It's I was I was traveling and more or less living in and out of my truck for about 3, 4 years, studying rite of passage, learning how to guiding, and really asking, how do I be sustainable in this? How do I support myself both financially as well as support myself in a mental, emotional way? And what I found was I couldn't do it in a way that it was my main source of income. There was something that would tug at me that didn't align with my soul and myself, and it was this almost it was this pull that was, if this person doesn't come to this ceremony, I'm not going to be able to support myself. So I would almost try to pull them before they were ready to come to it.
Okay.
So from that, I started asking the questions of, how do I support myself financially so then I can do this work? And throughout my life, it's been trades, it's been construction, welding, working in the services. And then over the last few years, it's been creating a holistic health business and putting the rite of passage guiding on pause so then I could build this and then ultimately go back to guiding and teaching people how to guide as well.
Oh, wow. So you're teaching guiding as well. That's very cool.
That is that is that is the one of my bigger dreams, is to, oh, it's a getting into a story a little bit here. So traditionally, every village, every community, every human group of people would go through a rite of passage. There's transition points that you would go through a rite of passage throughout your life, but adolescence to adulthood is the main one. And that has stopped. That stopped, not completely. It still happens and it has continued to happen, but as a whole, for the most part, stopped quite a while ago.
Hmm.
And it was so important in these communities, in these villages, that they would literally risk the lives of their youth to go through them because they knew how important it was. Because if you had an adolescent in adult body in a village, it was dangerous to the collective.
Okay.
So they would take them through a rite of passage to connect them to their purpose, to their gifts, to the reason they're in this world right now. And then they would be reintroduced into the community as an adult, having a role that they would step into for the rest of their life. Not saying that role wouldn't shift, but this is where you're at now. You're no longer an adolescent, you're now an adult, and we're going to give you a new role, new responsibilities as you step into that. And it's an extremely important process. And we see adolescents, we see adults still craving it in their actions in their day-to-day life, where they're doing things that are risking their life, adrenaline junkies, various addictions, various things to feel like they're being challenged in a way that is not sustainable. It's going to lead to burnout. We see workaholics
Mm.
tend to be someone that didn't get that transition and acknowledgement that they're moving into a new stage of life. And because it's been lost, there's all sorts of layers that have issues that have arose from it. And my intention is to create a school, if you will. Well, it won't be called a school, but it's a space to teach people to to have people go through their own experience as an adult, and then to teach them how to bring it back to their community. To specifically, every community needs something different. You know, if you live in a rural place, your needs as a community are going to be different than an urban place. So to help them create a ceremony, a rite of passage specifically for their community.
Wow. Okay. So I apologize. When you said guide, I was thinking you meant like a nature guide, but I didn't know this was a thing. That is
Mm-hmm.
so awesome. And you're right. I think that most of us, at least, the newer generations are not having that opportunity. And there's so much, um, uh, people are lost in ways that they just didn't have that opportunity. And I did not know that was a thing. That's
Mm-hmm.
I am so glad you're doing that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really curious about that now. I want to learn more about it.
Well, I'm here right now, so let's talk.
Let's do it. No, but I mean maybe later. I don't know. If I don't I want to get the rest of the story. So you guys so so Nicholas is actually from Alaska. He grew up in Alaska. He's now in Oregon, Washington, sorry,
Washington. Yep.
Washington. And doing this practice. But
Mm-hmm.
it seems like this is something that did you learn this in Alaska? I'm thinking when you say villages, I'm thinking villages in Alaska.
Well, when I say village, I'm speaking more to the royal village, the village that was the place based. The when when humans were a bit more closer to the earth and had a small intact community. I'm talking about that as a village.
Okay. All right.
And and it sort of started in Alaska, but it was not it was not as clean. So traditionally, there was one of the traditions that continued through where I grew up was that there was a real acknowledgement for the first large animal you would kill hunting. So when I first killed a caribou, which I was pretty young. I mean, I think I was like 6. We gave it away. We had a feast, a potluck, where people came and we gave the meat away. And this still happens. The first animal you give away, you give it to the people, you give it to your community as an acknowledgement that you're a provider now, a hunter.
Wow.
But it wasn't what was it for me. It wasn't enough to transition me into adulthood. I had to go through all sorts of various challenges, which ended up bringing me to a place called the Wilderness Awareness School, which is a school in Washington based out of Duval that hold programs for adults and adolescents to do nature connections work. So learn what has been called survival skills, which is a little bit of a loaded word, but
Right?
nature connection skills to learn how to remember your connection to the greater than human world, to learn how to work with the land and listen to the land and know what plants are, to know the plants around you intimately, where you can make medicine, you can eat them when they're seasonally available, to know the trees, to be able to make fire with friction fire, or even, Washington's a wet place. It's not the easiest place to make a fire, but if you know that hemlock has dry branches that will light up like a match, you can learn that tree, you can spot that tree at a distance and start grabbing them to start your fire. So this place was a catalyst for me to learn that I needed something deeper, as a real soul-centric ceremony to help transition me into the next phase of life.
Oh my gosh. That is awesome. Wow. What an experience. I mean, it just like it was like a jumping point, sort of. Like you learn that and you're like, okay, now what? Like, what's next? There's more. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay. So and so that brought you your love for the earth and like needing to be close to the earth and having that connection. And then you said that you had somewhat of a rite of passage guide situation at home, but you knew that there was more.
Deeper down, I didn't know that was like, I can't say that I had, from that point to when I went through Wilderness Swearer School, there was a lot of, I might call it the shadow side of myself was very present. Very, very much into partying, drinking, like a heavy drinker, drug use. I've traveled for 3+ years. Basically, I was lost. I was searching for purpose and meaning and wanting to know why I wasn't happy in the world. And then that ultimately led me into the Wilderness Awareness School, where I started remembering. I started remembering my connection to the earth, and started remembering my connection to plants, and that I can go and be in the forest and always have food. It could always be, there's always, if you know where food is and you know how to harvest it and you know how to work with it, you're always going to have food. You're
Right.
always going to have medicine. The herbalism is the people's medicine. Like we've been working with it forever.
Yeah. So because you're so connected to the earth, I mean, because you have a connection to the earth will take care of you. The earth has
Mm-hmm.
everything you need,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And so it was like needing to deepen that relationship, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Awesome. I love that. Okay. And so do you practice herbalism as well?
I do more for my personal use and for friends. And then every year I'll make a salve. So I'll harvest plants throughout the spring into the summer, and then I'll make one large batch of salves. And depending on the plants I get, I have certain spots that I know I'm going to go to every year,
Okay.
and then I'll sell them. But besides that, most of my herbalism is just for my own personal use.
Okay. Salve is a weird word, right? Do you say salve?
Salve,
It's such an odd word.
silent V.
it. But so do you make a specific one, or is it just, whatever you find is available? Do you have what's your favorite herbal concoction, or what's the most popular in your life? I have herbalist friends, and they all, one of them is like dandelion is my favorite. I will do, I always have dandelion something or rather,
Hmm.
elderflower, or
Hmm.
um what's your favorite to work with?
Well, dandelion is popping up right now in my yard. I see thousands of flowers, but I would say mugwort is one of my favorite plants to work with. The Artemisia family and the sage. I'm Yeah, I could sit under or next to those plants for hours. Yarrow is another plant that I always have it around me, and there's some really fun stories dating back to the Vikings and Achilles. Like the story of Achilles was that he got dipped in a vat of yarrow, but it missed that one section on the bottom of his foot. So his protection was
The
the
yarrow.
tea of yarrow. Almost always have cotton buds, cotton bud oil. So cotton bud oil is very antimicrobial and a beautiful plant. It has a amazing fragrance, and I'm planning on going and harvesting here in the next couple of days. That's the first plant I harvest in the spring.
Wow, you have flowers. You have plants. We still have snow.
Yeah, it's sunny. It's warm.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so great. Oh my gosh. And so when you make your salve, is it do you make the same one every year, basically? And is it like, do you use it for injuries, or dry skin, or is it just an all, general use?
Yeah. Yep. It's a first aid salve, so I use it for cuts, burns, various bruises, types of thing, inflammation. It's every year. There's generally cottonwood, bud, yarrow, and mugwort, and then I try to get plantain in there, whether it's longleaf or broadleaf, because that grows almost anywhere. I love if I can get arnica and comfrey, but I don't always have access to those two. And St. John's wort is another that sometimes I will put it in. I think this is probably 7 or 8 years I've been doing it. So it really varies to where I am physically and what plants are around me.
Right? What does arnica look like? I've
Arnica is a little yellow flower. I can't remember how many petals it has. I want to say 7 or 9. It's a short plant. It'd be about 9 inches to a foot off the ground, and the petal is probably about 2 to 3 inches in diameter. Very beautiful plant. Very medicinal, pain relieving, anti-inflammatory.
I'll look it up and see if, I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen it.
Hmm.
Awesome. I mean, I've seen creams, but you gotta
Hmm.
get the arnica
They're
somewhere.
Yeah, it's very common, and like when naturopaths often use it, and various practitioners, it's almost the first
Mhm.
pain relief
Yeah.
somebody gives.
'Cause you use it for bruises and bumps and stuff, right?
You can, yeah.
Okay. Wow. I don't know. I guess I'm of that people that assume that things just grow in the grocery store or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I know there has to be arnica somewhere. I've just never
Hmm.
identified it in the wild, I guess. So now I'll be looking. Awesome. Wow. And so, all right, so you're an herbalist, and um you wildcraft And that is that for like your herbalist practices? Is that, or just, are you like finding food? Is that like practicing foraging?
A little everything, a little everything. You know, what is often said, and I love it, is, oh, who said it? Socrates, I want to say, said, let your food be your medicine be your food.
Mm.
So it's like, yeah, I'm harvesting for my medicine, my herbalism, but at the same time, like right now, we have nettles coming up. So I'm harvesting nettles for sun tea, and I'm putting it in my eggs, and cleavers are coming out, so I'm using that as a cleansing tonic. And like it's like I'm it's they're so interchangeable. Medicine has been so separated from the origins, right? These petroleum based medications are they're all based from plants, but they're so separated that there's no longer, the soul is no longer in the medicine.
Mhm.
So for me, I'm going to harvest the plants that are both there seasonally, and I'm going to eat, drink, you work with them however my body wants to at the time. And from that, it's my medicine. I'm always intaking food and medicine. And earlier today I was walking and I saw some currant flowers, so I just pocketed as much currant as I could, and I got it soaking in water right now. I've never actually drank currant tea, but the flowers are delicious, so we'll find out.
Oh, I wonder what, yeah. I mean, currant, does that have, I know it's sort of like a raisin, but it's also a berry, right? It's a berry.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We're not,
It,
we're in Maine, it's considered invasive and it's not, we're not allowed to bring it in,
they, they use that word invasive, but there's a reason why those plants are there.
right? I know. I mean, if you were to buy like mail order plants, you cannot,
Mm-hmm.
they won't ship it to Maine.
It's the same with St. John's wort. It is actually a felony,
What?
can be a felony to plant St. John's wort. And it's a beautiful plant. Well, so the story goes, supposedly some cows, or a cow was found eating St. John's wort and died. And they marked it as a noxious weed. But the reality is that that cow would have had eaten so much St. John's wort that it would be so unreasonable that that was the actual cause of that cow's death.
Right.
But it's one of those things that because it was eating this thing at the time it died, the blame needed to go somewhere. And unfortunately, it went to St. John's wort, which often gets sprayed with pesticides now. But it's such a, like, they call it a winter. What is the, when somebody's feeling down or depressed in the winter
A seasonal
sadness?
seasonal affective disorder.
Mm-hmm. St. John's wort is something that is often used. People will supplement because it's such a, it has the ability to bring someone, uplift somebody. And if you make a tincture with alcohol, it becomes this beautiful bright red color as well.
Oh, is it not? It's not red to begin with, but then if you add it to alcohol, it turns bright red. Ooh,
Yep. Yep.
yes. That's so cool. Um, wow. I I've never seen St. John's wort either. That's really funny because I when you said the cow, they said that the cow died because of St. John's wort. I was like, but isn't that supposed to, St. John's wort is used a lot for people that have mental health issues or depression or something like that. So I was like, how?
Well, the thing is that when you start using St. John's, working with St. John's wort, there's a tendency to be hypersensitive to sunlight. So people will actually get sunburn a lot easier. So there is some validity, but it's dosage based.
Right. Right. You'd have to take a lot, like you said. Interesting. Okay. And so What's your favorite, do you have favorite things that you're looking for? I mean, I know you said nettles right now and you grabbed some currant, but um what do you typically look for? Do you do mushrooms and I know you're talking about plantains and stuff like that. Uh there's just so much that can be foraged. I know one of my
Hmm.
first episodes I had my physical therapist on, and because he's a forager, and I will never forget when I was in therapy and he said, "Oh, you know, you can eat beech leaves because they taste sort of lemony. You can put those in your salad." And I was like, "That's great. I can also use lettuce." But that's like that's me not really understanding, because you were saying the more wild things and the more you get back to the earth, you know, the variety. But that's me just being my lazy self, and like, but I can get lettuce right in my yard. Um, so that, but I have not tried that. But I'll never forget it.
Hmm.
Did have beach
And
salad.
and when we're talking about food as your medicine, we start talking about the micronutrients of wild plants versus farmed plants. And if you look at the nutritional value of a head of lettuce now compared to 40 years ago, it's 40 years ago, there was 25 times more nutrients in a head of cabbage, meaning to get the same amount of nutrients, you'd have to eat 25 heads of cabbage now, based on because the soil across the United States has become so depleted, right? So you can get additional nutritional value with organic food, but there's a lot of, you don't necessarily know. Corporations can buy an organic certification, so their practices aren't necessarily as good as you would want a small farmer down the street to have, or a biodynamic farmer. But when you are wild harvesting, it's hard to get a higher nutritional value on food than wild harvested food.
So you're telling me Casey was right and I should have listened and I should put beet leaves in my salad.
I'm not saying anyone's right or anyone's wrong. I'm
Just
just
think about it,
saying,
Amy.
I'm just saying, nutritionally, wild foods are superior.
Good. I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong, but I'm just saying this is better. Okay. All right. So, tell me more about, I'm not sure how, I mean, so is there more to your story than, than what you started with, or is that pretty much it? Because if we have a little bit more time, I want to learn more about this, rite of passage guide thing. Or maybe
Let's
I should just
go.
contact you outside, but, um, I'm just very curious. Um, so this is, and do people come to you and say, I want to, or do I can imagine parents would be like, okay, we're not going to have this kid messed up like the we did on the last one or whatever. Like, can you fix my child, please? But then you were saying that some adults would come to you, and that's amazing. Like, I did not know that was a thing, but I think that's a beautiful service to offer, because there are so many people who are just so lost, even though they
Mhm.
talk a good game and, you know, they might make lots of money and whatever, but I think a lot of us are lost.
You show me somebody who's not lost in our world. The modern world has taken us so far away from our natural roots. It's pretty. Yeah. How do you fit a square block into a circle?
Mhm. Right.
Or that should probably be backwards. A circle into a square box. But
Well, a circle could fit into a square box, right?
yeah, I guess so.
Yes. I'm not saying right or wrong, but I'm saying, but so that seems like, it seems like a real, whether people think of it or not, but it seems like a real gift to give because that is helping someone to discover their own purpose. And it's not like you're
Mhm.
saying you should be this, but you're
No.
like bringing them through this process that would help them to see it in themselves. Oh my
Hmm.
God.
Hmm. And I personally prefer to work with adults in this space, but I do guide adolescents. I work with a organization off Vashon Island in Washington called Journeymen, who are doing really good work. There's a place down in Eugene, Oregon, called Cascadia Quest. The guy named Rob Miller, who they do youth rite of passages as well as adult. My preference is to work with adults, and I really I really love to take someone through that experience that didn't get to go through it as an adolescent. And the way it works is like you're saying, I'm not here to instill values in you. I'm not here to say why you're alive in this on this planet in this time right now. I'm simply here to guide and reflect what I see and hear you sharing. And the way the process is,
Oh, thanks. I was going to ask.
everyone wants to know the process.
I'm
In
just curious.
logistics, what I always say is logistics are sexy because they allow everything else to happen. So the logistics, the way I often do it is a 12-day ceremony. So the first day, the first 4 days is setting the space, creating the intention, giving people the logistics of what's going to happen. We want to know why you think you're here. What brought you to us? Because I'm not. I mean, I was holding this. I've held this all over, like Death Valley, the middle of Utah, like not easy places to get to, and people will come. It's like, why did you decide to take 12 days plus travel days to be with us right now? There's something deeper that's calling you here right now. Like there's a deeper knowing that you need to be here. And we're gonna not necessarily discover it, but we're gonna put intention and we're gonna help you get as much clarity as possible. You know, if you ever carve anything, there's an idea that you're carving, but the wood or the rock is going to tell you what that carving ultimately is going to become. You're taking the layers outside of what already exists.
Hmm. Wow.
And then there's 4 days. It can be different. Adolescence is tends to be 2 days, 3 days. Adults are either 3 or 4. Everything could be condensed or expanded. I tend to do 4 days with adults, and they'll fast on the land without food, without shelter, without community. And the intention behind it is to separate with your comforts, separate with what you always have had, to go naked into the wilderness, to go naked with just yourself. Of course, everyone's different. Everyone has different needs. I'm not going to say somebody shouldn't sleep in a tent. Everything is just a suggestion. Some people maybe have never camped in the first place, and to camp in a tent is where their edge is. So we're not looking to push anyone over the edge. We're just, you know, saying, hey, we're on this side. The water's warm or the water's cold. I don't, we never, it's like, we're on this side. We went through that experience. We know you can go through it. We're going to meet you where you are. And we're going to hold you in that space while you go through it.
Hmm.
And they'll spend 4 days in the wilderness. They'll have water, they'll have journals, possibly rattles or drums, but they'll work with whatever they need to work with. It might be conversations that they need to have with parents that are alive or have passed. It might need to be they need to replicate an experience that happened in their life and do it in a different way. Like there are certain things that happen when people are in a state where they're separated from the day-to-day distractions of a cell phone, of a computer, of a television, of a book. Like when you get into a ceremonial space, certain things happen, and these ceremonies are deeply ingrained in all of us. Our ancestors at one point were land-based people, deeply connected to the earth, deeply connected to the more than human world, and they had ceremonies. And at some point, a group of people came in and said, "You're not going to do those ceremonies anymore." And they would continue in certain ways, but it was hidden, it was secret, and they didn't always get passed on. And there was a reason why, when the West came to the United States, one of the first things they do, and this happened throughout the world, every time a dominating culture would go into a, a civilization and take over, they would first kill the artist, and they would kill the creative people and the storytellers, the shamans, the ceremonialists, because they knew if they would disconnect the people from these traditions, they would be able to instill their own values and their own systems of thought. So you disconnect the people from their ceremony, they're going to ultimately go to your ceremonies. So what would happen is these ways of being would get buried, if you will. They would be put back into the earth where they came, and wait. And when the right time, when the seeds were ready for them to sprout, they would come back. And they're coming back right now. They're slowly coming back. We're seeing a major push with plant medicines, and those are ceremonies to help connect people to their ancient ways of being, their deeper belonging, their deeper knowing. And that's what we call it, a vision fast. That's what the vision fast is. It's a space for people to connect with their own ceremonies and their own ancient ways of being. And for me to say what someone needs to do is not necessarily my place. I might have a suggestion. I might say, I hear you talking about your grandfather or a daughter or a child that you lost. You might need to go and have some sort of interact in a way that allows you to cut ties with the stories that were, so then you can move forward.
Mm.
And after 4 days, we bring them back and we give them the option to share their stories. And it's a story that's told one time. It might be told differently throughout the years, throughout the days they leave, but that first story is a story that's only told in that space. And it's a story that is very vulnerable and very unique to an individual. And we have a practice where we reflect and we help bring out the gifts that they brought back, so then they can integrate it and bring it back to the world, the place they came from. Because without integration, there's a lot that can be lost, and tends to be, regardless, our culture is not intact. We're not an intact culture. So a lot of this stuff becomes foreign to people. Right. A lot of what I'm saying is the first time you're hearing it. And I'm sure it is for many people when I share it. So how do we both go through the experience, but also have the acknowledgement from the people that have never gone through it? Because it can be one of the most tragic things in the world to go through this experience and go back to a place where you had this huge, beautiful, tragic, heartbreaking experience. And then when you go to tell your loved ones, their eyes glaze over and they say, "You want to go get a pizza?"
Right.
right? We've all had
Comfortable
experience
with
in
that,
some.
level of vulnerability.
Mhm.
Sure. Ooh, I mean, so I would assume, Nicholas, that and it's interesting that you prefer adults, and I would think that that would take a whole different type of patience. Like I would think if you're working with adolescents, of course they're going to fight that and whatever. But I think that with adults, there must be like a this huge level of like unlearning. Like you have to unlearn all the toughness and the resistance that we've taken on in our lives, and then to, have someone, you have to wait for them to let it go, right? Because we're so accustomed to resisting and being tough and fighting, and that's really interesting. I am gonna look into that more. I
Mhm.
That's really interesting. And so why do you not work with adolescents? I'm just curious. Because that's
I
like
do.
the
Mhm.
typical, that's how it used to be, right? It would be with the
Mhm.
adolescents, and that's the big rite of passage.
I do. I do work with the adolescents. It's a lot. It's a energetically, it's different. And I feel like my gifts and my ability to hold space is better offered to adults and to, like I mentioned earlier, to teach adults how to hold that space for adolescents.
Yeah.
And it's it's tough. It's tough for adolescents right now. Like I don't think adults realize how tough it is for adolescents right now. Like I hear the stories. I hear the stories of what they're going through, and it's dark, and it's with the social media, it's it's a for me, I could only do it so much. Maybe once a year, but 2 weeks, it's going to take me it takes a lot of energy, and it takes a full commitment to hold one of these rite of passages for adolescents. And it feels like my work is better held for adults teaching them.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just curious. I mean, I would figure that working with, I mean, doing this practice in general, because I was thinking, with adolescents, because it is so hard. It's also hard for adults, but in a different way. Um,
Hmm.
does that take a lot out of you? Like, I know you said it takes a lot of energy, but like, do you need a recovery period from this?
Hmm.
I know
For
that you were
sure.
also talking about energy, in a sustainable way, but so yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where as a guide you also go through the experience, so you need time to integrate as well.
Yeah, you're taking on their pain and their emotion and their stories, and
Try not to, but it's
yeah,
you're a hollow vessel to the best of your ability, and the real teachers are definitely the natural world. You're there as a guide, and you're navigating what's going on. And yeah, you're definitely you have to integrate afterwards, so it can take a lot of energy.
yeah. I mean, I guess in better words, maybe you're not you don't leave there unaffected. Like you're affected by every person, I'm sure.
Of course. Yep.
And do you do this in groups, or is it like one on one?
Groups, yeah, generally minimum. The smallest group I would do is 4 people. And then the largest, I don't. Eight is a really good size. 10 would be the largest for adults. Adolescents, I don't want to work more than 10 people. But traditionally there'd be 50 to 100 youth in some villages, or multiple villages would come together.
Right. But it's not just you. There are other people on your like
Yeah, generally I have a co-guide. We like to have an elder witness. Assistants will be there sometimes.
okay. All right. So you don't have to take all that on.
No.
Okay. Wow. I I'm so impressed. I can't wait to learn more about this, honestly. And I want to see if there's somebody in Maine so that I can get more information. But so I want to be respectful of your time, Nicholas, but so when I say the word sustainability, what does that mean to you?
I actually looked up the etymology of sustainability before this talk, and what it came down to is I can't remember the exact path that it led to, but to endure, to endure time
Mm.
is the root of sustainability. So, what does it look like for something to be able to endure time? And, I think I have to automatically think of sustainability in the earth. The earth is this self contained ecosystem of sustainability. Left to, I don't want to get into the full my thoughts on the role of the human being, but it's a whole nother talk. But left to the natural world, its own devices, the earth is a self-contained ecosystem of sustainability. It's so perfect that every single piece of life has a unique niche in place,
Mm.
as does a human. So sustainability is one that endures time. An example is the earth as a self-contained ecosystem.
Okay. And so if the earth is sustainability, then our role is to support it? Is that I don't want to put words in
Oh, mm-hmm. uh, our role, support it. Yeah, we humans have thumbs. We have the ability to share stories, and the ability to make beauty in ways that other animals don't. And I really believe that our role is to see the earth, share the beauty that we see in the earth in others, reflect that back, and reflect it with our hands. And we have the such a amazing ability to create food forests and tend to the land, and to speak to the natural world in a way that brings it alive.
Mhm.
You say the right words to a plant, and that plant will say thank you.
Awesome. Wow. Whew. This was not what I expected in the best possible way. I absolutely love it. So if somebody if somebody is touched by this conversation, Nicholas, and they want to learn more about anything that you're doing, I mean, you talked about a whole bunch of things, but if they wanted to learn more, what is the best way that someone can find you or follow and learn more?
Mm-hmm. My website is Wandering Bear Wellness. Instagram handle the same, Wandering Bear Wellness. Feel free to reach out. On We didn't really talk too much about my holistic health work or
Oh my gosh,
that realm.
look at
No,
that.
it's we're good, we're good. But I'll just put a plug in that on April 11th, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I am doing a webinar on parasites and fungal infections and what they are and what to do if you have one. It's pretty in-depth conversation. So if you're interested in learning more about fungal or parasite infections, the link is on my Instagram and probably will be put up on my website later this week.
Awesome. Wow, interesting. Okay. Uh wow. I'm sorry we didn't talk about your business, but would you mind mentioning a little bit about it before we go?
Sure. It's Wandering Bear Wellness. I work both in person and online. I have 3 month, 6 month, 12 month uh, mentorship on. I really focus on chronic pain, digestive issues, and it's I'm one of those people where if you haven't had the help with other professionals in the past, that's when people come to me. We'll find exactly what's going on. We'll assess, we'll run various tests and learn what the root cause is, create a specific program for you to not only heal from the issues you have, but then to move into a state of ease and a state of what your values and goals are in your world. We'll find out what your goals are and help you create a path to move towards that.
I love that. I'm just starting to tiptoe into that area, like not as a practice or anything, but like, um, I'm starting to like work away from medical doctors, and like I just started working with a functional medicine person, and following her. And she's actually a podcaster, so I met her and I was like, "Ooh, that's something I'm interested in." So now we're like working together. But I love the idea of holistic wellness. I mean, who wouldn't, honestly? But it's such a bummer that the I society, I guess, is not embracing it as they should. And it's so weird because it seems like the smart way to do it. Like the healthy way, to n- have your oh my gosh, what was the quote that you used? The Socrates one? Your food be your health and health be your food. What?
Let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. I hope that's Socrates. It might have been Plato. It's one of the Greek individuals.
We'll figure it out. I'll put it in the show notes. Um, but I think that, that it makes sense. And okay, let your food. I'm just writing it down. And then I'll
well, it, well, it's also when you have a chronic issue, chronic issues don't happen overnight, right? They take years to manifest, and they're not going to heal overnight. I mean, they're going to take a while to heal from them. So to come from the Western approach, which is very first aid, EMT specific, we break a bone, we're going to reset it, put a cast,
Mhm.
wonderful. But if you have diabetes or autoimmune issues, you need to do other stuff,
Right.
and you need to look at your mindset. You need to look at your breathing patterns, your nutrition, your hydration, quality of water, quality of food, proper movement, too much, too little, sleep. Sleep is free, best medicine that was ever invented. There's nothing that will come close to it. If you're not sleeping well, it's going to be hard to heal well. So unless you're taking the approach of the whole system, it's going to be really hard to heal from whatever's going on.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm one of those tough nuts. I have not slept well for 35 years. And so now the body is falling apart.
Mm,
We're gonna work on that.
it's coming. You got a functional medicine. You're working on sustainability type of work. You're gonna get there.
Awesome. Well, gosh, Nicholas, thank you again so much for stepping in so quickly. And I'm so touched by this message. Like I said, I did not know anything about this guide, and I was thinking that you meant like a nature guide, and I am so blown away that this is a thing and I did not know about it. And very cool. Very cool. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for sharing that. Nicholas's information is all going to be in the show notes, folks, and definitely check Nicholas out, Instagram and his website. The workshop coming up, what did you, April 11th? That's my grandmother's birthday.
Mhm.
Um, that's my grandmother's birthday. So happy birthday, Gimme. I'm going to learn about parasites and fungal infections because I can. But and you guys feel free to join up as well. So thank you again, Nicholas. I so appreciate your time. My gosh, I'm so blown away and so grateful. I hope that folks will learn more and follow, and you'll get some new I don't know, people to connect with. We're and we're just here to make a difference in whatever way we can. Cool.